Morning, students of JBM Global School, Noida. I'm your snooker and chess instructor Manoj Tyagi. So, in my lesson number 9 today, I would like to show you how a professional beginning is made by a grandmaster. So, over to you, to the grandmaster, Mr. Jitendra Advani. Please listen to him carefully and observe his moves. I have reduced for your easiness the speed of the video to half its actual speed so that you can know exactly how he thinks and how he makes each and every move in chess to make a professional beginning.
In today's chess video, we are going to learn how to play the King's Gambit opening. We start with the moves e4, e5 and then white plays f4. At first glance, this looks like a very risky move because white is opening up his king side to some nasty checks like this. But there is a good reason to play this. From here, there are two main lines. If black takes this pawn, that's the King's Gambit accepted line. And if he does not take, then it's the King's Gambit declined variation. In this video, we will focus on the accepted line and I will show you all the popular variations and strategies for white and also how black can counter this opening. Now when black takes, the immediate threat is queen h4 check, so white needs to be careful here. Some good options are bishop e2 or bishop c4, developing the bishop and at the same time also vacating this f1 square for the king to move. In fact, bishop c4 was played by the great Bobby Fischer to win many games in this variation. This is also called the bishop's gambit. But anyways, the best move I feel is knight f3, which is also the most popular move in this position. Now let's try and understand the objective of this opening. Black is a pawn up and he always has a slight advantage. From white's perspective, it's all about dominating the center and focusing on rapid development. Look, white has forced this pawn away from the center and now he can easily push d4 to gain center control and also try to regain this pawn. Moves like bishop c4, knight e5 and castling will all launch a systematic attack on black's king side. This is actually a very complex opening and requires a lot of study and analysis, so it is not played that often. I generally recommend playing this opening against an opponent who is rated slightly higher than you. Such a player would most likely be well versed with all the standard opening moves and easily beat you at those. So you might need to try something different and this might be your surprise weapon, especially if you have prepared for it and understand all the main ideas and strategies behind it. You can use it to complicate the game and create some unusual positions on the board to throw your opponent off guard. Just studying it a little or even watching this video will help you in trying it out in your chess tournaments. Now let's look at the two most popular variations in the King's Gambit accepted line. In the first variation, we will see how white can get into a great position, and in the second position, I will show you how black can defend to maintain a solid advantage. Whatever lines I am going to show you are like the best and most popular moves that have been played by both sides. At the end, I will summarize all the important ideas and strategies for both white and black, so keep watching till the end. Alright, now from here, the most common move by black is g5, defending this pawn. This is the main line. Then we play h4, attacking this pawn. g4 attacks the knight. Knight e5 saves it. Now if black tries d6, then we can simply take this pawn and equalize the material. Therefore, in this position, the best move for black is knight f6, which attacks this central pawn. Now if you want to regain your pawn immediately, you can simply take on g4. If knight takes, then you take back with your queen, and if black takes on e4, we play d3. Knight has to move, and then we can take on f4. Going back, the best move in this position is bishop c4, attacking f7. Black is forced to block with d5. E takes on d5, then comes bishop d6, stopping white from advancing this pawn and also attacking this knight. Then we go for d4, defending the knight and attacking on f4. Black castles, white takes, and now if you see, we have a really interesting game on the board. White is a pawn up, and all these white pieces are closing in on the king. Once we push g3, this pawn will soon fall. And after white castles, even this rook can join the party. All in all, this should be a good game for white. These are just some of the common lines, but there could be many different variations, so let me just summarize what you need to do as white. Basically, it's important to develop your pieces rapidly, especially these three minor pieces. Eventually, you should push d4 and exploit the center. You should be able to regain your pawn like this, so equalizing shouldn't be a problem. This e-file could be used by a queen to attack the king with checks and discover attacks, so keep an eye on that. Ultimately, you will need to open up black's king side as soon as you can and if possible prevent him from castling. This f7 square is always going to be a good attacking point, so always look out for opportunities to expose Black's king. In order to do this, you might have to sacrifice some material at times, so don't be afraid to do that. As I mentioned, in the King's Gambit, it's not only about the material, you also need to give emphasis on the positioning of your pieces. Alright, now let's look at how Black can counter this opening. But before that, I request you to show your support and like this video, so hit that thumbs up button right now. Okay, so a very good way to deal with this opening is the Fisher's defense, which starts with the move d6. This is probably the best defense for Black. What it does is that not only opens up this diagonal for the bishop, but also solidifies the center and prevents White from playing e5. After this, you will see two main moves, d4 and bishop c4. Let's look at d4 first. After d4, we can go for g5, defending this pawn. Then comes h4 as usual, attacking the defender. Again g4, attacking the knight. This time White cannot play knight e5 because of this pawn. Also, he cannot move to g5 because f6 or h6 simply traps the knight. Therefore, the best move is to actually go back to g1. Then queen f6 is the best move that I recommend for Black. It defends this f4 pawn and also attacks the center. Then knight c3, planning to play knight d5. We play knight e7, preventing it. Knight g to e2, putting pressure on f4. Bishop h6, defending it. Queen d2, adding another attacker. Bishop d7, then comes g3, forcing this pawn to move. Pushing forward isn't a good idea because then knight f4 gives the knight a very good square and it becomes difficult for us to break through. Therefore, in this position, we simply play knight c6, attacking d4, so this knight cannot move now. G takes on f4, and finally we castle on the queen side. If you look at this position, the material is equal, but our king looks very safe, whereas White's king is still in the center. We have all these attacking options on the king side, so this should be a good game for you. Going back, now let's look at what happens if after d6 White plays bishop c4 in this position. We start with h6, preparing for g5. Then comes d4, attacking the f pawn. g5 defends it. White can castle king side. Then bishop g7, putting pressure on the center. c3, knight c6, then g3, trying to open the f file for the rook and bishop. From here, we have this interesting move, bishop to h3. If we move the rook, then we can tear apart his king side by clearing the pawns and getting our queen into the game, so that isn't looking good for white. In fact, in this position, it's actually best for white to go for the exchange sacrifice. And after all this, if you see the position, black is up in material, our king looks much safe, and there are a lot of attacking options up your sleeve. Database shows that from this position, more than 45% of the games are won by black, and only 30% of the games are won by white. Just to summarize and give you an overall perspective, as black, you need to keep in mind a few things. You need to smartly hold on to this f4 pawn. You should avoid making any unnecessary pawn moves and try to keep your pawn structure in good shape for as long as possible. Your plan should be to develop all your pieces on the king side and maintain pressure on the center with your knights and bishops. As soon as you get an opportunity, just castle on the queen side so that your king is safe, and then you can go after this white king with your entire army. Okay.
Thank you so much, and see you until next time, next week, with my new lesson.